I sold my company for $43 million. I wanted to celebrate with my son and his wife at the best restaurant in town. But as they danced, a security guard quietly leaned in and said, "Your son slipped something into your juice." My heart sank. Betrayal from my own flesh and blood. I stood up and walked out without a word. 20 minutes later, karma found him. Before we go on, make sure to subscribe to the channel and drop a comment telling us what time it is where you are right now. Dad, you're destroying our future. James's voice cracked like a whip across my penthouse living room. I kept mixing his favorite Manhattan cocktail, the ice clinking against the crystal glass in a slow, steady rhythm. Outside, the city lights of Manhattan sparkled through the floor-to-ceiling windows, but inside, the warmth between us was gone. "James," I said, finally turning to face him. "I've made my decision. I'm selling HickTech in a month." The words hung heavy in the air, like smoke. I'd rehearsed them for weeks, yet saying them out loud still felt surreal. 42 years of building, creating, and surviving, reduced to a single sentence. James froze, his face draining of color. "Dad, you can't do this. This is our family business." I handed him the glass. His hand trembled as he took it. "Family business," I said, the words tasting bitter. "You don't even know how our software works." Emma, my daughter-in-law, looked up from her notepad. She'd been scribbling through the entire conversation, pretending to take notes, but I saw the calculation in her sharp green eyes. "Irving, maybe you should think this through," she said softly. Her voice was sweet, but I could hear the steel beneath it. 3 years of watching her pull James's strings had taught me to recognize her tactics. I set my glass down with deliberate force. The sound echoed like a gavel. "I've been thinking about this for 3 years. My decision is final." James's arms flailed wildly, like he was conducting some invisible orchestra of panic. "But what about my position? What about our future?" "You're throwing away everything we've built." "Everything I've built," I corrected sharply. "You've just been cashing paychecks." Emma's pen moved faster across the page. Whatever she was writing, it definitely wasn't meeting notes. James slammed his glass down, splashing amber liquid across my Persian rug. "This is insane. You're 65, not 90. You could run this company for another decade." "I could," I said, my voice steady, "but I won't." Even I was surprised by the finality in my tone. For months, I'd wrestled with doubt, but tonight, that doubt had vanished like mist in the morning sun. "I want to travel, James. I want to see the pyramids. I want to walk the streets of Tokyo. I want to sit on a beach in Thailand without checking emails every 5 minutes." "Hire a CEO," James pleaded, sweat glistening on his forehead despite the cool air. "Keep the company, keep the family, and leave you to interfere and undermine decisions you don't understand," I shot back. Emma stood gracefully, clutching her notepad to her chest like a shield. "Irving, surely there's a compromise. James has worked so hard." I almost laughed. "Hard," I said, my voice sharp. "James shows up at 10, leaves at 4, and spends most afternoons playing golf with clients who only tolerate you because of my reputation." I took a slow breath. "The decision is made, Emma. Tomorrow, I'm meeting Titus Grant to finalize the sale." James's face went crimson. He looked like a child being denied his favorite toy. "Grant? You're selling to Grant Tech. They're our biggest competitor. They're offering $43 million in cash," I said calmly. The number lingered in the air like a prayer. 40-3 million, enough to live like a king for the years I had left. James collapsed into the leather chair by the fireplace, burying his head in his hands. "You're ruining everything, Dad. Everything." But instead of guilt, I felt lighter than I had in years. The weight of responsibility, the constant worry, the burden of cleaning up after James's mistakes, all of it felt like chains finally falling away. Emma moved behind James, placing a hand on his shoulder, but her eyes never left mine. They were cold, calculating. "When exactly is this sale happening?" she asked quietly. "Next month. The paperwork's already started." Her grip on James's shoulder tightened. For a second, something dangerous flickered across her face, but it vanished so quickly I wondered if I imagined it. The evening stretched on, full of unspoken tensions and resentments. Outside, the city buzzed with life and possibility. Inside, the air felt heavy, thick with endings. James lifted his head, and I saw something new in his eyes. Desperation, mixed with calculation. "Okay, wait, let me think." He stood and began, pacing in slow, deliberate steps around the coffee table. "Maybe we could hire a manager, or make me a full partner." I stayed seated, swirling the ice in my glass. "James," I said quietly, "you're not ready to run even the sales department." The words hit him like cold water. His jaw tightened, but he kept pacing, kept thinking. "Then teach me," he said finally. "Give me 6 months. I'll prove myself." "You've had 12 years to prove yourself." Emma's pen scratched quickly across the page of her notepad. Whatever she was writing, it wasn't just notes, it was a plan. James stopped pacing and faced me head on. "What if I bought you out? Gradually, over time. With what money?" I asked. "Your salary." His face flushed, but he pressed on. "I could get investors, or bank loans. There has to be a way to keep this in the family." I leaned back in my chair. The warm leather felt grounding, steady. "James, you owe $17,000 on credit cards. Your mortgage is underwater. What investor would trust you with $43 million? Silence. Even Emma stopped writing. James's shoulders slumped. The fight drained out of him like air from a punctured balloon. "All right, Dad." His voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "If this is your final decision, I respect it." The words sounded hollow, rehearsed, but I let myself believe them. "That's right, son," I said softly. "It's time for everyone to go their own way." I stood and moved to the bar, pouring myself a scotch this time. 2 cubes of ice clinked against the glass as I swirled it. "You'll be fine, James. Both of you will. The sale includes severance packages for everyone. You'll have time to start fresh." Emma closed her notepad with a quiet snap. "Of course, Irving," she said, her voice calm, but her eyes unreadable. "We completely understand." But something in her tone made me glance at her sharply. She was smiling, but it didn't touch her eyes. James moved to the window, staring out at the glittering city skyline. In the glass, his reflection looked ghostly, pale, and insubstantial. $43 million, he said quietly. "That's life-changing money." "It is," I replied, "and I plan to change my life completely." "Travel," he said, almost absently. "The pyramids, Tokyo." "Among other places," I said with a faint smile. "I've been working on a list for 3 months. Countries I've never seen. Experiences I've put off for decades while building this company." Emma rose gracefully, smoothing her skirt. "Well," she said softly, "this has been quite an evening. James, darling, perhaps we should head home. Let your father rest." James nodded without turning from the window. "Yeah, good idea." He walked over and shook my hand. His grip was firm, but his eyes stayed distant. "Congratulations, Dad. I hope you find everything you're looking for." The words should have made me happy, but instead, they felt like a goodbye, heavier than it should have been. Emma leaned in and kissed my cheek, her lips cool against my skin. "Take care of yourself, Irving. This is a big decision." "The biggest of my life," I admitted. They gathered their things quietly. James's coat, Emma's purse, her mysterious notepad tucked safely inside. At the door, James turned back one last time. "I love you, Dad. You know that, right?" "I love you too, son." The words were true, which only made everything harder. When they were gone, I stood in my empty living room, scotch in hand, staring out at the living, breathing city below. Tomorrow, I would meet with Titus Grant. Tomorrow, I would begin dismantling the company I had built from nothing. But tonight, for the first time in months, I felt at peace. The grandfather clock chimed 9 times. The evening was still young, but I felt ready for whatever came next. The next morning, coffee steamed in my favorite mug as I sat in my home office, surrounded by 40 years of memories. Sunlight poured through the windows, warming the mahogany desk where I had made decisions that shaped my entire life. My eyes fell on a framed photograph. Me, in 1983, 23 years old, standing in front of a cramped Brooklyn garage with a crooked smile and boundless dreams, $5,000 in savings. One impossible dream. Who could have imagined that, 40 years later, that dream would be worth $43 million? I picked up the frame, staring at that young man's face. He looked so sure, so hungry. He had no idea what was waiting for him. The failures, the breakthroughs, the sleepless nights coding until his eyes burned. The first year was brutal. 3 failed software projects, bank accounts nearly empty, ramen noodles for dinner almost every night, and Sarah, God rest her soul, working double shifts as a nurse just to keep us afloat while I chased what must have seemed like an impossible dream. But then came the breakthrough. I opened a desk drawer and pulled out another photograph. Our first real office. A basement space in Queens. Flickering fluorescent lights. Leaky pipes that rattled when it rained. But it was there we built. Accounting Pro. Revolutionary might be too big a word, but it changed everything for small businesses. A simple interface, powerful features. A price tag small companies could actually afford. The turning point came when Peterson Manufacturing called. Their system had crashed, wiping out 3 months of financial records. They were desperate, willing to try anything. Anything. $50,000. That was our first big contract. I remember staring at the check for so long that Sarah had to pull it from my hands and take it to the bank herself. From that moment, everything changed. Word spread through business networks, and Accounting Pro quickly became the software small companies trusted. We added new features, hired more programmers, moved into better offices. By 1990, we had 20 employees. By 2000, over 100. The garage days began to feel like a life someone else had lived. I sipped my coffee and glanced at the wall, where our very first check still hung in a frame. $500 from a restaurant owner in the Bronx, who just needed help tracking his inventory. $500 to $43 million. The American dream, written in numbers. But success came with its price. 70-hour work weeks. Missing James's baseball games. Falling asleep at my desk more nights than I cared to count. Sarah, always patient, always understanding, until cancer took her from me 5 years ago. That's when the weight of it all really settled in. I had built something for my family, only to realize family was slipping through my fingers while I wasn't paying attention. James never cared about the technical side. He only wanted the perks, the money, the title, the easy ride, without ever understanding the foundation holding it all together. And Emma. She made it worse. I'll never forget the way she calculated James's inheritance on our wedding day, literally taking notes during the reception, asking questions about company assets. I opened the latest financial reports. Hicks Solutions was solid, profitable, growing clients in 37 states, our software running in thousands of businesses. But I was tired, bone tired, soul tired. My phone buzzed. Titus Grant's office. Mr. Hicks, he's looking forward to your meeting this afternoon. So am I said, meaning it. $40-3 million. Enough to see the world twice over. Enough to finally live instead of just work. I stood and walked to the window. Central Park stretched below me, green and alive with spring. Joggers ran the paths. Children laughed near the pond. Life was happening down there, Real life, not just boardrooms and profit margins. James would be fine. He was lazy, yes, but not stupid. And Emma, she had too much invested in him to let him fail, for the first time in years. The decision felt not just necessary, but right. Selling wasn't betrayal. It was freedom. I drained the last of my coffee and began gathering the documents I'd need for the meeting contracts. Financial statements, asset valuations, paperwork representing a lifetime of dreams, finally coming to an end. In just a few hours, I'd sit across from Titus Grant and begin the final chapter of this story. The Hick-Tech story would end. But the story of Irving Hicks was only just beginning. That young man in the Brooklyn garage would finally get to rest. Afternoon sunlight slanted through my office windows, painting golden stripes across the financial reports spread across my desk. Numbers that once kept me awake at night now looked almost like poetry. Profit margins, growth percentages, expansion forecasts. 40 years I spent building this empire now. It was time to enjoy the fruits of my labor. Tokyo, Paris, Tuscany, so many places I still had to see. I traced my finger across the world map, pinned to my wall, following routes I'd dreamed about for decades. The cherry blossoms would be blooming in Tokyo this time of year. I could stroll through Ueno Park, visit centuries-old temples, taste authentic ramen from street vendors late at night. My laptop displayed the latest quarterly reports. Revenue up 18%, client retention at 94%, software downloads 30% above projections. Hick-Tech had become everything I imagined back in that cramped Brooklyn garage, but the numbers felt strangely distant now, as if I were looking at someone else's success. I opened my desk drawer and took out a leather-bound notebook, my travel journal. Paris first. I wrote in careful, deliberate handwriting. The Louvre, Notre Dame, the tiny sidewalk cafes. Sarah had always wanted to visit. Sarah. She would have loved this moment, to see me finally step away from the desk that consumed so many years of our marriage. She always understood my drive, the necessity of building something that would outlast me. But she also knew when enough was enough. Beside the notebook lay my travel guide, open to the Tuscany section, rolling hills, vineyards, stone cottages, where time moved at the slow pace of wine. Instead of New York deadlines, I could rent a villa, learn Italian, maybe even write the memoir I'd been putting off for years. My phone buzzed. Titus Grant's assistant, confirming our Wednesday meeting. 2 days to finalize everything. I closed the laptop with a firm snap. The Hick-Tech era was ending, but the next chapter of Irving Hicks's life was just beginning. I stood, stretching muscles stiff from too many hours hunched over desks. My back ached, a reminder that I wasn't 23 anymore, 60-5, maybe 20 good years left. 20 years to live, instead of just work. A photograph caught my eye. Our very first office, Christmas party, in 1987. 12 employees, including Sarah, gathered around a plastic tree in our leaky Queens basement office. Everyone looked so young, so hopeful. Now there were over 200 employees in 4 offices. Our software powered thousands of businesses, restaurants, medical clinics, construction companies, all running on code I wrote in that tiny basement. And they'd survive this transition. Titus Grant, new technology. He respected good people. Under Grant, Hick-Tech would keep growing long after I stepped away. I walked to the window overlooking Central Park. Joggers ran along winding paths. Couples sat on benches. Children played on the playgrounds. Life moved at a human pace down there. Tomorrow, I would review the final contracts. Wednesday, I would shake Titus's hand and sign the papers that would change everything. And next week, I would be free. The travel brochures scattered across my desk were no longer just dreams. They were invitations. Buddhist temples in Kyoto, wine tastings in Bordeaux, art galleries in Florence, museums in Prague. All of it, finally, beautifully, within reach. All of this was possible because I had built something worth selling. My leather notebook filled quickly, itineraries, hotel lists, flight schedules, 6 months of travel. To start, maybe longer if the wanderlust took hold, for the first time in decades. I had no deadlines except the ones I chose, no employees depending on my decisions, no quarterly reports demanding my attention. Just an old man with new dreams, and enough money to chase them anywhere. The grandfather clock in the corner chimed 4 times, Wednesday. Couldn't come fast enough by the time I stepped into the HICTech conference room that afternoon. The space felt different. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the polished mahogany table where I had made countless decisions over the years. Titus Grant arrived precisely at 2 o'clock. His handshake was firm, confident. Everything about him radiated competence. Silver hair perfectly styled, navy suit tailored to perfection, sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Irving," he said, voice calm but commanding, "your company is exactly what Grantech needs for expansion." I appreciated that kind of directness. I'm glad HICTech will be in reliable hands. "Titus," I replied. We sat down in the leather chairs. My assistant brought in coffee, the ritual of corporate negotiation, one I'd performed countless times, but never with stakes this personal. Titus opened his briefcase and laid out the documents, thick contracts, financial projections, transition timelines, the paperwork that would turn 40 years of sweat and sacrifice into numbers on a balance sheet. "Your software architecture is impressive," he said, flipping through the binders. "Clean code, scalable design, meticulous documentation." He'd done his homework. I respected that. 40 years of refinement, I said. "We learned from every mistake." "It shows," Titus replied. "Your client retention rates are exceptional." Our conversation flowed easily to professionals who spoke the same language. No posturing, no games, just honest negotiation. I presented the company portfolios I'd prepared, client testimonials, growth projections, technical specs, everything organized with the precision that built HICTech's reputation. "Your team is talented," Titus said as he reviewed the employee profiles. "We want to retain most of them. They deserve stability. 43 million is a fair price for such an asset," he continued. The number still sounded surreal. $40-3 million, more money than I could ever spend. "It's generous," I said, "but fair. You're buying proven technology and established relationships." Titus smiled, the kind of smile that closes deals. Deal. The word hung in the air, like the sound of a gavel. The handshake across that table felt historic, like signing a treaty that ended a long war. My assistant appeared with a bottle of Dom Perignon, Arling E. Wool, reserved for special occasions. The cork popped with sharp finality. "2 new beginnings," Titus said, raising his glass. "2 successful partnerships," I replied. The champagne tasted like victory, crisp, clean, layered with a quiet complexity that lingered, just like this moment. We spent another hour reviewing transition details, employee contracts, client communications, technical documentation, the careful dismantling of 4 decades of work, piece by piece. But it no longer felt like dismantling. It felt like handing over a legacy. It felt right, natural, like watching a child leave home, painful, but necessary. "Your son will be taken care of during the transition," Titus said, his tone strictly. "Professional James will receive the same severance package as the others. It's time he made his own way." "Fair enough," I replied. "Independence builds character." The words rang with truth, the kind of wisdom earned over decades of mistakes and victories. Titus understood the delicate balance between family loyalty and business necessity. By 4 o'clock, we had covered everything. Preliminary agreements signed, Timelines locked. Expectations clarified. Next Wednesday would bring final signatures and wire transfers. Irving, it's been a pleasure, Titus said as we shook hands. You've built something remarkable. Thank you, I said. I'm confident you'll take it even further. When he left, I stayed behind, standing at the window. Manhattan pulsed below, taxis rushing, people crossing streets, chasing their deadlines and dreams. Soon I would join them, not as a man buried in meetings, but as someone with time to actually see the world beyond profit margins. My phone screen lit up, 3 missed calls from James. He probably wanted news about the sale. For once, I had good news to share. The champagne had left me warm, generous, almost hopeful about repairing family ties that had frayed under years of work and distance. Maybe this new chapter would bring us closer. Back at the penthouse, the signed contracts lay across my coffee table like victory flags. Final sale documents, wire transfer confirmations, dissolution papers, the official end of HICTech, and the official beginning of my next life. I poured a generous scotch and reached for my phone. James answered on the second ring. Dad, how did the meeting go? His voice carried an energy I hadn't heard in years. James, it's official. The company is sold. Let's celebrate tonight, Bella Vista. The words felt strange leaving my mouth. 42 years of work, now past tense. Congratulations, Dad. Emma will be thrilled. What time? There was something softer in his voice. Maybe relief, maybe pride. 8 o'clock. Terrace table with a park view. We'll be there. And Dad, I'm proud of you. The words hit me harder than I expected. When had he last said that? Thank you, son. That means everything. I hung up and called the concierge. Giuseppe, I need a reservation at Bella Vista tonight. Something special. Terrace seating, park view. Congratulations on your success, Mr. Hicks. I'll make sure it's perfect, he said. Giuseppe had managed this building for 15 years. He knew when to ask questions and when to simply deliver. The shower felt luxurious, the hot water, washing away decades of stress. I dressed carefully, navy suit, silver tie, Italian leather shoes. Tonight deserved formality. The man staring back at me from the mirror was still 65, still marked with the lines of responsibility, but lighter. Somehow I felt unburdened. The scotch had left me philosophical. How many celebrations had I missed while building HICTech? Birthday dinners postponed for client crises. Anniversary trips canceled for product launches. Time traded for money, then money traded for more. Time. Sarah would have laughed at the irony. I selected a vintage watch from my collection, a Patek Philippe I'd bought to celebrate our first million year, but never worn. Tonight felt like the right moment for dormant luxuries. The evening stretched ahead, full of possibility, good food, fine wine. Family conversation, without business looming over us like a shadow. Outside my windows, Central Park glowed with early evening light. Couples strolled hand in hand along tree-lined paths. Children played while parents watched from benches. Normal life, the kind I'd mostly observed, but rarely lived. My phone buzzed. A text from Giuseppe. Bella Vista table, confirmed. Prime Terrace location. 8 p.m. champagne service arranged. Perfect. James and Emma deserved a proper celebration, despite our recent tensions. They were family, the only family I had left. I straightened my tie and checked the time. 7:15, just enough time for a walk through the park so I could arrive fashionably punctual. The contracts on my coffee table caught my eye one last time. Legal documents that severed for decades of connection. Tomorrow, I would wake up a retired man. No company to manage, no employees to worry over, no quarterly projections demanding my attention. Just Irving Hicks, with more money than he could ever spend. And finally enough time to remember who he was, before business consumed him. The evening air was cool, perfect for a night of celebration. Fine Italian cuisine, excellent wine, and family conversation about the future, not profit margins. I grabbed my keys and headed for the elevator, feeling lighter than I had in years. Tonight, we would toast new beginnings. Bella Vista's entrance glowed with warm amber light as I approached through Central Park's dusky shadows. James and Emma stood waiting beneath the restaurant's elegant awning, their figures backlit by Italian lanterns strung across the terrace. "Dad." James's embrace felt real, almost urgent. Emma kissed both my cheeks, her smile perfectly composed. "Irving, you look wonderful. Success suits you." The hostess led us through the dining room to our reserved terrace table. Manhattan glittered below like scattered diamonds, Central Park stretching into the night like a promise of new life. I raised my wine glass, feeling lighter than I had in decades. "To you, Dad. You deserve happiness," James said, his voice carrying an edge I dismissed as excitement. We glasses under string lights that swayed gently in the evening breeze. The sound clear and celebratory. Emma ordered for the table, osso, buco, risotto, Caesar salads. Everything felt perfect, orchestrated, like a scene from a film about families who had survived their battles and come out stronger. "Irving, tell us about your travel plans." Emma leaned forward with interest. "Japan first," I said. "I've always dreamed of seeing the cherry blossoms." The words painted pictures in my mind, ancient temples framed in soft pink petals, quiet streets waiting to be discovered, gardens where time moved at nature's pace, not by business schedules. When Sarah was alive, we used to talk about Kyoto every spring. She collected photographs of the philosopher's path, capturing the way sunlight filtered through blooming branches. James fidgeted with his napkin, glancing at his watch more than once. "That sounds incredible, Dad. How long will you stay?" 6 weeks at least," I said. "Maybe longer, if the wanderlust keeps me there." A jazz quartet began to play near the bar, their music drifting over the terrace like a soft veil of smoke. Couples moved to the tiny dance floor, swaying gently, lost in each other's arms. Emma reached for James's hand. "Darling, shall we dance? That song is beautiful." James hesitated, his eyes flicking between her and me. "Go," I said, smiling. "I'll enjoy watching you too. It's been ages since I've seen you dance together." They rose from the table, moving toward the music with careful steps. James's hand trembled just slightly as he placed it on Emma's waist. I leaned back, sipping my wine and watching them move in slow circles. The evening felt enchanted, suspended between past victories and future dreams. A man in a dark suit stood near the terrace railing, scanning the restaurant with quiet, professional focus. Security, no doubt. High-end places always kept their protection discreet. The music swelled, violins wrapping around the saxophone's low cry, a sound that spoke of romance and new beginnings. James and Emma looked striking together, young and elegant against the glittering city backdrop. I realized, this was the meaning of success. Not the bank balances, not the business accolades, but moments like these, family gathered, celebrating, surrounded by beauty and possibility. My orange juice sat half-finished beside my wine glass, ice cubes melting into slow, lazy swirls. The restaurant seemed to embrace us, soft lighting, warm conversation, the gentle clink of silverware on china. Around us, diners spoke in low voices, their words blending into a quiet hum of contentment. Tomorrow, I would begin planning the Japan trip in earnest, travel guides, hotel reservations, cultural research. The meticulous preparation that once built my company would now be devoted to leisure, to living. James spun Emma gently, her dress flowing like water. They looked happy, ready to build their own lives, independent of my company. Maybe this transition would bring us closer. No more boardroom battles, no more inheritance tension. Just family, free to enjoy each other's company. The security guard shifted, now facing our table more directly, his posture suddenly alert. But nothing could dampen my mood tonight. $40-3 million. 42 years of work. And finally, freedom. The jazz melody softened as James and Emma continued their dance, their movements slow and hypnotic under the terrace lights. I watched them with quiet pride, remembering the boy too shy to ask girls to dance at school events. Then a shadow fell across my table. "Excuse me for the interruption, sir," a low voice said. "I'm Mike, security for the establishment." I looked up. The man in the dark suit stood beside my chair, his face calm but troubled. "Yes?" I asked. "What's the matter?" "I saw that young man pour something into your juice while you were distracted." The words hit me like cold water. I stared at him, sure I'd misheard. "What? Are you certain? That's my son?" Mike's expression didn't change. "Unfortunately, yes. Please be careful." My gaze shifted to the glass amber liquid, ice melting into pale rivulets, the same glass I'd been about to finish before James and Emma returned from dancing. The world tilted. Sound receded, distant and muffled. "You're absolutely sure?" "I am," Mike said. "I watched him do it while you were looking at the musicians. He used a small container. James, my son, the boy I'd taught to ride a bike, helped with homework, supported through college. Sir, are you all right?" Mike's voice broke through the haze. The sound of Mike's voice seemed to come from far away. I turned toward the dance floor, where James held Emma close, his back to our table. They moved together with practiced intimacy, oblivious to the fact that their plan had been uncovered. My son had tried to poison me. The realization hit like a wave, cold and relentless. Every forced smile tonight, Emma's carefully measured conversation, James's restless energy, I had mistaken it for excitement. No, they had planned this, probably for weeks, sir. Mike's voice cut through my thoughts, forcing me back into the moment. "Thank you," I said, my throat dry. "What? What should I do?" "Don't drink from that glass." "Do you want me to call the police?" "Police? My son, arrested for attempted murder? Business headlines. Scandal. Humiliation for our entire family." "No," I said, too quickly. "Not yet. I need to think." Mike nodded, his expression unreadable. "I'll stay close. If you need anything, just signal." He stepped back to his post by the railing. Though I could feel his watchful presence like a shadow at my back, my mind raced. Confronting James here would mean a public scene, police involvement, cameras, headlines. Everything I had built could collapse overnight. But doing nothing meant accepting what had just happened. The music stopped. James and Emma began walking back toward the table, flushed from dancing, smiling as if nothing had happened. Time slowed. 30 seconds, maybe less, before they reached me. Think like the man who built a $43 million company. Evidence. I needed evidence before making an accusation that could destroy everything. My hand hovered over the glass of orange juice, then stopped. Mike was right. I couldn't drink it, but I could preserve it. My fingers found the small pill bottle in my jacket pocket, heart medication I almost never used. With practiced calm, I unscrewed the cap, keeping one eye on James and Emma as they approached. "Did you enjoy the music?" Emma called out, her voice cheerful. "Beautiful," I replied, surprised at how steady my own voice sounded. 20 seconds. I filled the bottle with orange juice, proof of betrayal sealed inside a piece of plastic meant to save my life. I capped it and slid it back into my pocket. 15 seconds. What about the rest of the juice? My eyes landed on the potted plant beside the table. Casually, as if lost in thought, I tilted the glass and let the remaining liquid soak into the soil. 10 seconds, James. And Emma reached the table. "We should do this more often," James said, pulling out Emma's chair. His hands were steady now. No tremor, no nervous energy. Whatever he had put in my drink, he believed it was already done. James sat, his face bright with post-dance satisfaction. Emma smoothed her dress, both of them watching me, smiling. My own son. How could I have been so blind? But now I know the truth. That was lovely, I said, my voice calm to calm. You too danced beautifully. The orange juice glass sat empty before me, its contents now hidden in the restaurant's decorative plant. In my jacket pocket, the pill bottle felt heavy, not with pills, but with evidence. Where's your juice, Dad? James asked casually, though I caught something else under his tone, a flicker of anticipation. Finished it while watching you dance, I said evenly. Thirsty work. Celebrating. His smile faltered. Just a fraction, but I saw it. Should we order dessert? Emma's voice was bright, almost too bright. I stood, reaching for my wallet. Actually, I think I'll call it an early night. Long day. The final paperwork was exhausting. Both their faces shifted, first confusion, then something sharper, unreadable. But, Dad, we just got started, James said. Rain check. I placed 3 crisp $100 bills on the table, enough to cover the meal and leave a generous tip. Tonight was perfect. Thank you both. I kissed Emma's cheek and embraced James. My arms felt heavy, as though I were moving through water. I love you both, I said. The words felt like stones in my throat, too heavy for them to understand. Dad, wait. James half rose from his chair. Stay, finish your wine, enjoy the music. I can find my own way home, I said, and turned away. I walked with measured steps, feeling their eyes burn into my back. The weight of $43 million meant nothing compared to the weight of my son's betrayal. Mike appeared as I reached the restaurant's interior. Smart thinking with the plant, he said quietly. Evidence preserved, threat neutralized. Thank you, I replied. You saved my life tonight. Part of the job. Will you be all right getting home? I'll manage. The evening air felt sharper as I stepped outside, as though I were breathing in a new world where nothing, not even my family, was what it seemed. Through the restaurant's windows, I caught one last glimpse of James and Emma. They leaned toward each other, heads close, speaking in urgent whispers. No more dancing smiles, just planning, calculating what to do next. I turned away and walked into Central Park, my footsteps echoing on the empty paths. Joggers passed, their breath visible in the cooling air. The pill bottle in my pocket felt heavier with each step. It held more than orange juice. It held proof that my own son, the boy I had raised, taught, and supported, had tried to kill me. $40-3 million. Worth murdering for, apparently. But they had failed. And now, I knew exactly who they really were, beneath the warm smiles and polite family embraces. The apartment buildings along Fifth Avenue loomed ahead, monuments to both success and betrayal. Lights twinkled in 1,000 windows, where families lived ordinary lives, untouched by poison and deceit. My penthouse awaited me, both sanctuary and prison. Safe from harm, yes, but also sealed with a knowledge that would change everything, forever. Tomorrow, I would decide what to do with the evidence. Tonight, I would simply survive the shock of discovering that blood ties meant nothing when money was involved. The decorative plant would wither in a few days, proving the juice had been poisoned. Mike's testimony would stand. The pill bottle would provide laboratory confirmation. I already had everything I needed to destroy the son who had tried to destroy me. But first, I had to understand how a father becomes his child's enemy overnight. The answer, I suspected, was that he'd always been the enemy. Tonight had merely stripped away the illusion. Manhattan's lights blurred past the taxi window as I sat in the back seat, the pill bottle heavy in my jacket pocket. The driver hummed along to a jazz station, unaware that his passenger had just survived an attempted murder. My phone buzzed. James's name lit up the screen. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Dad, where are you? We came back and you were gone. His voice sounded concerned, but something else lingered beneath anticipation, maybe even hope. Sorry, James. I felt sick. Went home. Oh, a pause. I hope it's nothing serious. The tone hit me like ice water, not worry, but joy. Thinly veiled excitement, disguised as concern. My own son was hoping I would die. Don't worry, I said evenly. I'll be good as new tomorrow. You sure? Maybe you should see a doctor. You left so suddenly. He was fishing, waiting to learn if the poison had worked. Each word carried false sympathy, but his true emotions leaked through. Just, tired son, long day, with the paperwork. Oh, right, the sale. Well, get some rest, Dad. Feel better. The line went dead. No, I love you. No genuine concern. Only relief that his father might not wake up tomorrow. I slid the phone back into my pocket and leaned against the taxi's worn leather seat. $40-3 million. That was what my life was worth to them. The doorman greeted me as I entered the building, but I barely heard him. Everything felt distant, like moving through heavy glass. The elevator climbed in silence toward the penthouse, toward the sanctuary that now felt more like a prison. Inside, I locked the door with unusual care. All 3 deadbolts clicked into place. I removed the pill bottle from my pocket like evidence from a crime scene. Under my desk lamp, the orange liquid looked almost innocent. Vitamin C and attempted murder in equal parts. I placed it carefully into my safe, beside insurance papers and stock certificates. This was worth more than anything else I had ever protected. Proof of betrayal. The leather chair in my study welcomed me like an old friend. This morning, I had sat here planning travel and retirement. Tonight, I was planning something else. Entirely. Justice. Or maybe just survival. The phone rang again. I let it go to voicemail. James's voice filled the room. Dad, I'm really worried about you. Call me back, okay? Emma sends her love. Emma sends her love. The woman who had helped plan my murder was sending her love. I poured 3 fingers of scotch and stood at the window overlooking Central Park. Somewhere down there, in a restaurant I would never visit again as an innocent man, a decorative plant was slowly dying from the poison meant for me. Tomorrow, I would need to find a private laboratory, someone discreet, someone who could analyze the sample and provide official documentation. Then, perhaps, a lawyer. Someone who understood inheritance law and how to protect assets from heirs willing to kill for them. But tonight, I would simply sit with the knowledge that my family had tried to murder me for money. The scotch burned as it went down, but not as much as the truth. Outside, the city moved on as if nothing had happened. People having dinner, watching movies, calling loved ones with genuine affection. A world where family meant safety, not danger. My reflection in the window looked older somehow. The man, who had celebrated business success just hours ago, had died at that restaurant table. Someone harder stood in his place now. Someone who understood that blood meant nothing when $43 million was involved. The next morning brought clarity that the night had refused to offer. I dressed in my best navy suit, the one I wore for important meetings, and made 2 phone calls. The first was to Morrison Analytics, a private laboratory trusted by Manhattan's elite Force-sensitive, confidential testing. The second was to Harold Steinberg, the estate attorney, who had structured my business assets for decades. I need both services today, I told my assistant. Priority appointments only. Morrison Analytics occupied the 15th floor of a quiet medical building on the Upper East. SIDE. Dr. Elizabeth Morrison herself handled my consultation. She understood immediately that discretion was everything. The sample will undergo a full toxicological analysis, she explained in a calm, professional tone. Gas chromatography, mass spectrometry, the complete spectrum. I handed her the pill bottle that had saved my life. How long for results? I asked. 24 hours for preliminary findings, she said. 48 for complete documentation suitable for legal proceedings. Proceedings. The word felt heavy, loaded with consequence. This is completely confidential, I asked. Absolutely. Mr. Hicks, attorney-client privilege extends to forensic consultants when legal action is anticipated. The next day, I returned to collect the results that would change everything forever. The findings are definitive, Mr. Hicks, Dr. Morrison said. Potassium cyanide, a lethal dose. Her report was thorough graphs, chemical formulas, expert analysis, all painting a single, horrifying truth. My son had tried to murder me with one of the deadliest poisons known to science. Will this hold up in court? I asked. Absolutely. It's official, expert analysis, with full chain of custody documentation. I studied every detail, the concentration levels that would have killed me in minutes, the purity suggesting professional procurement. This was premeditation beyond any doubt. Harold Steinberg's law office occupied a quiet corner suite in Midtown, its walls lined with legal books and family photos that now felt like cruel jokes. I need to modify my will immediately, I said without preamble. Harold had managed my legal affairs for 15 years. He understood urgency when he heard it. What specific changes? He asked. Remove James and Emma as beneficiaries. Everything goes to charity. His eyebrows rose slightly, but he asked no questions. Discretion was why wealthy families trusted him. The foundation for medical research, I decided aloud. They value life. Within hours, the new documents were drafted, notarized, and filed. James and Emma would inherit nothing except the knowledge that their greed had cost them everything. That evening, I called the Bella Vista restaurant. Giuseppe, this is Irving Hicks. I'd like a reservation for tomorrow night. The same table as Tuesday, if possible. Of course, Mr. Hicks. 8 o'clock. Perfect. And Andrew, I added, could you make sure that plant near our table remains exactly as it is? The one I watered during my visit? A pause, then quiet understanding in his voice. Certainly, sir. We'll leave everything undisturbed. Bye. Tomorrow night, the plant would be dead, brittle, brown proof of cyanide's power. A silent witness that even James could not deny. I spent the rest of the evening writing a letter, each word chosen with the same precision that had built my company. It was simple, direct, final. James and Emma, I know about the cyanide. Mike Riley witnessed your attempt. The toxicology report confirms it. My will has been changed. You are no longer my heirs. The $43 million will go to medical research, not to fund your comfortable lives. You chose greed over family. Now you have neither. Irving, I sealed the envelope with wax. Old-fashioned finality for a betrayal that demanded it. Tomorrow night, I would return to the scene of their crime for the final act of this family drama, not as a victim, but as a judge, delivering sentence, justice. Served at the same table where betrayal had been attempted, the irony felt perfect. The Bella Vista restaurant would never be the same again. Thursday evening felt different, charged with the electricity of approaching justice. I arrived precisely at 8 o'clock. The sealed envelope tucked inside my jacket like a weapon. Giuseppe himself escorted me to the terrace, the same table where my son had tried to murder me 3 nights earlier. Your guests haven't arrived yet, Mr. Hicks. They will. I sat facing the entrance, the envelope placed deliberately beside my water glass. The decorative plant nearby had turned brown and brittle, its leaves curled and lifeless, perfect evidence of what had been meant for me. James and Emma arrived 10 minutes later, their faces carrying the smug glow of people who thought they'd gotten away with murder. James's black suit looked like premature morning attire. Dad, you look well. Better than expected, you mean? They sat. Emma smoothed her dress, with the same hands that had helped plan my death. The night breeze carried the scent of dying flowers and betrayal. "How are you feeling?" Emma's voice dripped with practiced sympathy. "James was so worried about your sudden illness." I gestured toward the withered plant. "Interesting what poison does to living things, isn't it?" Both pairs of eyes followed my gesture. James's face drained of color. "That plant received a special watering Tuesday night," I said casually. "Orange juice mixed with potassium cyanide. The same mixture you intended for me." Emma's napkin twisted in her hands, knuckles white. I lifted the envelope, holding it like a verdict. "This contains everything you need to know about your failed attempt." James's hands trembled as he broke the wax seal, tearing it open with desperate urgency. I watched his face as he read, watched the exact second hope died and reality crushed him. His mouth opened and closed like a drowning fish. "What is this?" His voice cracked. Emma leaned over, reading the letter that legally erased their future. "Dad, wait. This was all. I don't want to hear it." My voice cut through, his excuses like a blade. "Mike Riley saw you pour the cyanide. The toxicology report confirms it. You chose money over family." I stood, looking down at the son who had tried to kill me, and the woman who had helped him. "You wanted my 43 million. Medical research will benefit instead. You wanted me dead. You're dead to me instead." James lurched halfway out of his chair, panic making him clumsy. "Please, Dad, I can explain. Goodbye, James, forever." I walked away from the table without looking back, leaving them with their broken futures and the evidence of their crime. Behind me, James's voice rose, desperate and pleading, but it meant nothing now. Giuseppe waited at the restaurant's entrance. "Will you be returning, Mr. Hicks?" "No. My business here is finished." The night air felt cleaner as I stepped onto the sidewalk. Central Park stretched ahead, full of honest shadows and straightforward darkness. No poison, no murderous relatives, no love laced with betrayal, just the beginning of a life where family meant nothing and justice meant everything. My phone would ring tonight, probably many times. James and Emma would beg, threaten, bargain, but the decision was already made. I would let it ring. $40-3 million had bought me more than retirement. It had bought me the truth about my son and the freedom to live without. Pretending blood was thicker than cyanide. The city lights glittered like scattered diamonds as I walked home, alone, but no longer vulnerable. Justice, I discovered, tastes better than revenge. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next story, click the box on the left. Thank you for watching.